This week's videos are all about making lemonade from lemons, which is to say, what happens, what do, how do you recover, how do you react when your plans for a project just do not turn out the way you expected. And I want to start with a knitting project I have in mind. I haven't talked much about my knitting on these videos, and I really need to because I do a lot of it. So the knitting project I have in mind is a sweater for actually a complete and total stranger. Uh, but it's a gift. It feels to me like a mitzvah, a charitable act, and so I'm going to do it. I'm going to make this person a sweater. So here's the situation. I bought this yarn online um, via my computer, which meant I couldn't really see the colors terribly well. And I'm really pleased with both colors. The problem, if you want to call it that, is there's not much difference in the value of these colors. This brown and this green, if I could show them to you in black and white, and there's probably a way to do it, but I haven't figured it out. If I showed them to you in black and white, it would be really hard to tell the difference between them. And what I know from long experience is that if you're going to do any kind of color work pattern with knitting, you need to have that value contrast. Otherwise, the two colors just kind of bleed into each other, and you can't even really tell that there are two colors. So here's my lemonade solution, and I've got three of them, and I'll figure out what I want to do when I'm done. The only problem is that this particular yarn is a superwash, deliberately purchased so that the recipient can machine wash the finished sweater and let it air dry. And all of my lemonades are non-superwash yarns. So I'm going to need to come up with some kind of creative solution. And honestly, the solution is probably going to be that I use this brown color driftwood alone for the sweater, and then I'll do a colorwork hat to go with, because hats don't need to be washed that often, and it's a lot easier to hand wash a hat than it is a sweater. But without further ado, here are the ways you can get around an unexpected lack of value contrast. And folks, if you take anything away from anything I say, this is the thing to take away. That value contrast is one of the most useful concepts in dealing with colors. Value contrast means that you have a huge difference between the darkness and lightness of colors. So if I've got two colors here that don't have much value contrast, one of the things I could do in a color work kind of setting is to do, let's say, a big stripe of the brown and then a very skinny stripe of a very different color in terms of value, and then the second color. So notice what happens right away. Just having, and I'm going to see if I can do this, just kind of showing you one or two strands. Okay, this might give you a clearer idea. Just a tiny, narrow, kind of almost pinstripe between these two colors, and then I would do another pinstripe on the other side of this green, and then go back to brown. Just a tiny separation can make a huge difference. Now, this value contrast, this particular combination of colors, this white is really going to pop, like it's going to take over. So a different variation would be to take a much darker color and do the same sort of thing. If I set off the green stripe with pinstripes of this hand-spun very dark brown, again, the, the green would now be differentiated just because it's separated from the brown color, but this dark brown color doesn't take over and command the eye the way that the white did. Lastly, I could take a color that is very different in value and in color family. And this, now, if I worked some kind of, I could, for instance, do a kind of fade. Imagine, if you will, a colorway pattern, and I hate this name, but that's the traditional name. Uh, a what's called a lice pattern that kind of faded from this brown to brown with some yellow specks into some green specks. Again, now we're talking a very different thing. I would probably want to use more of this yellow color um, as opposed to a pinstripe. But all these combinations suddenly mean that what had been a kind of difference in colors now becomes vibrant and active. I could even work in more shades of green or whatever it was I chose just to have this difference. So value contrast is what's making, or lack of value contrast, what's making this combination just kind of so. Whereas putting in something very different, and also it's important when you're putting colors together, think about the amounts of color. So again, just a pinstripe of this very bright yellow could be enough to turn the difference. Just like a pinstripe of the white or a pinstripe of the dark brown. All these things could turn the difference, could make a huge difference in my happiness with how this project turns out. And this is worth emphasizing. When you finish a project, and this is what the rest of this week's videos are going to be about. When you finish a project or a phase of a project, I feel that it's personally really important to just take 5 minutes and look it over and go, what am I happy with? And what do I wish I'd done differently? Not that I'm going to go back and change it, but just taking that time to evaluate how a project turned out will help you grow as an artist. And that doesn't mean you have to do this like every single time. If you are happy knitting or crocheting baby blankets, and that's just because you want to keep your hands busy while you're watching TV or doing something else, that is perfectly fine. But when you want to approach your craft like an artist learning to refine your craft, to improve your craft, that 5 minute post evaluation builds up over time. It helps you expand your repertoire. It helps you build your eye, to develop your eye for what works and what doesn't in combinations, because all these fiber arts crafts are really arts if you want them to be. And you don't have to make them into arts, but you might end up being happier over time by thinking, okay, something didn't work about this project. Let's take a second and figure out what it was. And there you go.